I am going to say hello and welcome to Burlington Code Academy's first ever UX Design Bootcamp Demo Day. We are so excited to be offering this program, and we couldn't do it without you, Rick. So thank you for all your hard work. And students, you have gone above and beyond what I could have imagined these capstones would have looked like. So be really proud of yourselves. Congratulations. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Benjamin Boaz, our CEO, to give some words about Burlington Code Academy and some thank yous.
Hi, everyone. Great to see all the familiar and new faces in the virtual room we have here. Thank you so much for coming. I know that, this time of year with school starting back up for some of our loved ones and with the summer coming to a close, that things can be quite hectic. So really happy that all of you who are here were able to make it. Before we get started, I do have a few words I want to share with you. I know that there are a few more people pouring in, so we'll just get going and take it from there. So first of all, I just want to say that this is a really, really special occasion for Burlington Code Academy. This is our first ever UX Design Bootcamp Demo Day, and that means that this is our first ever UX Design Bootcamp. We launched this program more towards the beginning of June, so right at the start of summer. And the students who are in this program really took a risk on us. We've never done this program before. They don't know, exactly what our historical track record looks like with running these programs. And I really cannot thank every one of the students who took that risk and joined us for this bootcamp. I really can't thank you all enough. So thank you so much. I mean it from the depths of my heart. Why does that mean so much to me specifically? Because my background is actually in UX design. It's not in programming. When I started Burlington Code Academy, or at least when I started thinking about Burlington Code Academy, I was working as a user experience designer in New York City. And a lot of what prompted me to start this program with the folks who helped along the way was really driven by my own career change. So before I was a UX designer, I'd graduated college with a liberal arts degree. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And, I got the first job that was offered to me right out of college. I became a receptionist at an advertising agency. While working as a receptionist, I started to mentor and shadow the UX team because I really found them to be sort of the most fascinating arm in the organization. Along the way, after putting in countless nights after work and before work, I eventually landed myself a full-time UX role. And so a few years into my career as a UX designer, I could sort of look back and said to myself, okay, how did I get here? I didn't have any formal training. I never went back to college. And it was really because somebody believed in me. And it was really because I believed in myself enough to actually learn the material that it took for me to learn the skills to get the job. That's the same thing with these students. These students really had to take a leap of faith and join Burlington Code Academy with the intention of changing their entire career. Moving into a new career as an adult is scary and it's hard, and it means that somebody's really dedicated to bettering themselves or pushing at least towards their dreams. And I cannot tell you how much it warms my heart to watch each and every one of these students actualize that. So thank you all so much. I also want to give a big thank you to Rick Mechanic. So Rick joined Burlington Code Academy somewhere in the second quarter of 2020. And so Rick came on into our company with so much experience that if I were to try to summarize it all into like a paragraph, it would be a really long paragraph. He had 2 decades of management experience running his own company, and I'll let him get into that more. But what we saw in Rick, and I believe what we still see today, is that he's an incredible instructor. He's patient, he's kind, he's giving, and more than that, he gives himself a lot in every way that he can to make sure that his students are successful. And we are all so happy to have him join, and we're so thankful for him to be able to run such an incredible program. So thank you so much, Rick.
Sure thing,
I
Ben.
also
Thank you.
want to give a big thank you to our TAs and some of the help in the classroom, specifically Mateo Cohen, who came in a little bit later to join as somebody who was assisting in the classroom. Mateo has a lot of experience as a UX designer as well, and it was just so nice to get that sort of the difference in perspective from multiple people who are working with these new designers. That being said, so I just really, I cannot tell you how much this all means to me, how thankful I am for everybody who took a leap of faith, and how excited I am for your new journey as a UX designer. It's really an incredible field. It's so much fun, and it's just as challenging as it is rewarding. So I'm so happy for you all to be here today. I want to give another thank you to our project sponsors, specifically Byron Batches from EZ-Probate. Byron and I have worked closely together in the past in the same building at VSET. And the students will go into more detail as to their relationship with the hiring partners. And so I'll keep this brief. I also want to give a big thank you to the city of Burlington, who acted as a project sponsor on Love Burlington, which is the second project that will be demoed tonight. So thank you so much to both of our project sponsors. We're really excited to demo what you've put in front of us. I also want to say that there's even though we're not in person, we're an online organization. There's so much magic that happens within these virtual walls, and a lot of that magic doesn't just happen out of it doesn't just happen by accident. It happens by careful consideration, planning, and attention to detail. And that's something that Sadie Goldfarb continues to provide as somebody who acts as a liaison between students and management as well as staff. So Sadie, you really are a rock star. You put the whole program together from the operational perspective, and I just want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate you. I also want to give a big shout out to our Director of Education, Josh Burke, who has been absolutely instrumental of getting this program off the ground from the very beginning, when it was just an idea floating around, all the way to the execution and launch. He helped put together the curriculum. He helped organize the team. He made sure that all the building blocks were being laid down properly, and it really wouldn't be a successful cohort if it wasn't for Josh. So thank you so much. As far as last thank yous are concerned, Alex Horner, he's sort of he's our COO and he's my co-founder. Alex is sort of the invisible hand in the organization. He makes sure everything works and nobody knows it. So I want to make sure that everybody knows it now. Alex has done an incredible job of providing a lot of the support that for everybody on every team to make sure that everything happens without any hiccups. So I want to say thank you so much, Alex. You're just an incredible co-founder, and I really appreciate you. Last of the thank yous, I want to say thank you to some of our community and organizational sponsors and community partners. That includes the Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies. VSET, for short, is a co-working incubator and mentorship space in Burlington, Vermont that's worked with dozens or hundreds of startups that have received help, whether it's mentorship or funding, all the way to a place to work out of. And VSET's more than just a group of people who are trying to put together a co-working space. They know the ins and outs of how businesses work and how to make sure that they're successful. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know if we'd be where we were today. So thank you, VSET. I also want to give a big thank you to Hula. Hula is a co-working space, incubator, and large, what I call business theme park happening down on Pine Street, or right off of Pine Street, right off the lake. Hula is in the old Blodgett Ovens building. It's this really beautiful space that that's lakeside access and bike path access. And what it does is what Hula has done is they've created a vision around Burlington as a tech hub, executed that vision, and then put a ton of companies together to make a community out of it. So it takes an extraordinary mind and an extraordinary group of people to make something like that happen. So I just want to say thank you so much to Hula. Last but not least, I also want to thank the Vermont Department of Labor and VSAC, both of which provide grants for our students to be able to take our courses. It's really incredible when you can see local resources and local dollars floated back into the economy and circulate, which is exactly what the Vermont Department of Labor and VSAC is doing and has continued, or has done and is continuing to do. So I just want to say thank you so much to Vermont Department of Labor and to VSAC, which is the Vermont Student Assistance Corporation. So unless I forgot any big thank yous, I just want to say that I'm really excited for today. I can't tell you how much this means to me. Our students are unbelievable. When I was looking at not only their work, but the way that they are able to look at themselves and evaluate their work based on their performance, how they grow and how they push that growth through their projects, it's unbelievable. And it's design takes, and if design is done right, it takes an iterative approach. You don't do it right the first time. You don't do it right the second time. In fact, you'll never do it right. You just get better at doing it. And that's exactly the mindset that our students have not only taken into their projects, but it's also what they've taken into this classroom. And the amount of personal growth and the amount of maturity and self-awareness it takes to be able to do that is really commendable. So once again, I just want to give the biggest thank you to our students. So without further ado, I'll pass this off to Rick Mechanic. But yeah, thank you all for being here and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Benny. I really appreciate that, and thank you for the kind words. So hello, folks. I'm Rick Mechanic. I'm the UX Program Manager and lead UX Design Instructor here at Burlington Code Academy. And I'd like to welcome you to our inaugural UX Design Bootcamp Capstone Demo Day. We're happy you could join us. First of all, I have some thank yous of my own. Some of them are a little bit repetitive, so I'll try to move through these things quickly. But first, I'd like to thank our our capstone partners, without whose participation and support, we wouldn't be able to provide the quality of education we aspire to. So thank you to EZ-Probate and to Love Burlington, the city of Burlington. I'd also like to thank our hiring partners. Thank you for your support and your belief in our mission. The commitment that you make to our program and to high quality jobs in our state makes this all work. So thank you guys. I'd also like to thank our Lunch and Learn guests for sharing your time and expertise with our students. You gave them hope that yes, this UX thing and a few other things are real. So thank you guys for that. I'd also like to thank Etienne Morris, who's our student career counselor. She's actually the first person that I spoke with regarding joining the team at BCA, and a person that I learn from every time she speaks to our students at their career events. She also happens to be one of the most positive people that I know, so thank you, Etienne. I'd like to thank the team at BCA. I'd like to thank our leadership team comprised of Benny, Alex, and Josh, and the entire team. But a special shout out to our intrepid community manager and all-around coordinator of awesomeness, Sadie Goldfarb. Thank you, Sadie. And to our interns, Maddie Teven, Olivia Mechanic, and Rob Zampella. Thank you. You guys have been awesome in terms of supporting our efforts here. I'd also want to welcome and thank Maria for Genovese for joining us. She's our new content curriculum writer. We're so happy you're here. Welcome aboard, Maria. And then finally, I'd like to, in terms of the staff, I'd like to thank my right-hand man and partner in crime and our students' best friend most of the time, Mateo Cohen. Thank you, Mateo. He's been a great addition to the team, and I couldn't have done this program without him, so thank you. And then finally, I'd like to thank our students. As Benny said, they've put their trust in us. I can attest to the fact they've worked their butts off over the last 12 weeks. They took on every challenge that we threw at them and sat through every seemingly random wink design video I made them watch. These were 6 strangers who came together during a once-in-a-century pandemic, learned online together, worked online together, and produced some really remarkable work, all in a really short amount of time, and for our wonderful capstone clients. So to you guys, well done. You've earned the right to call yourselves UX designers. So congratulations, guys. In terms of some ground rules, what we're going to do is we're going to start off the presentation with one of our groups. This is the group that did the work for EZ-Probate. And just to give you guys some sense of timing, we'll start in about a couple minutes here. We'll run probably until about 5 o'clock. And then from 5 to 5:15, we will do a QA session for that group. What I would ask everybody to do is to use the chat feature in Zoom to pose your questions. Sadie's going to act as our moderator. She will take your questions, and then when the students finish their presentation, she will basically ask the students from that team your questions. If we don't get to your question, don't worry, we will make sure that the students get your question, and then when we send out the recording from this event, we'll include the answers to your questions with that recording. After the first group goes, we'll finish there around 5:15, thereabouts. Our second group will go. This is the Love Burlington team, and they will run from about 5:15 to 5:50, and then we will follow that up with another 15-minute QA, which will run to about 6:05. After we complete that, we will ask our hiring partners to just stick around if they're interested, and then we will have probably about a half an hour QA. We'll allow people to unmute themselves, and you can ask questions directly of either team. So did I forget anything, Sadie? I think I got everything there.
Sounds great to me.
Okay, so cool. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate this. It's great to again see some familiar faces, to see some of our students from our software development bootcamp. Thank you for supporting the team here, guys and gals. So without any further ado, I'm gonna hand it off to the EZ-Probate team.
Thank you, Rick. Well, hello.
Hello.
A bit of housekeeping first. My computer sometimes struggles to keep up with Zoom. If it sounds like the F-35s are flying overhead, well, they might be. They were earlier today, but it's more likely just my machine. So with that, welcome to Burlington Code Academy's first UX UI demo day. Benjamin Franklin said nothing is certain but death and taxes. Unfortunately, none of us can change the former, but our UX design work with EZ-Probate makes it easier to take care of the legal aspects of a loved one's death. I'm Brooke Martinez, and I had the pleasure of working with Alex Holder and Nate Ginsbury on a project with EZ-Probate. We want to give a huge thanks to founder and CEO of EZ-Probate, Byron Batras, and Hannah Warren and all the people at EZ-Probate for bringing us such a meaningful project. Quick show of hands. Who knows what probate is? If you don't know, don't worry, you're in good company. Probate is the court process by which a will is proved valid or invalid. In other words, when somebody dies, it's a state-regulated process to transfer ownership of assets, pay off debts, and finalize legal affairs. If an estate isn't probated, any assets titled solely in the deceased's name cannot be legally transferred. This leaves heirs unable to benefit from an asset, and in some cases, at risk of losing the asset altogether. Let's think about this. Your spouse or grandmother or aunt just died. You're incredibly sad. And now you have to add probate into the mix. You don't know how many thousands of dollars it's going to cost you. It's an unfamiliar process taking place in an unfamiliar system. And it takes place in a court, something you associate with crimes and bad things. In 2016, all these factors led Byron Batras to start EZ-Probate, a company whose mission is to empower individuals to complete probate on their own. We're going to let him talk about it in his own words in this short video.
In 2012, my wife's grandmother passed away. And so I had the knowledge of how to avoid probate, but going through the process myself, it was really eye-opening. I was actually quite angry, hurt, and frustrated by the attorney that she used to draft the documents. And so I set out to probate the estate without the attorney. And that's really when the idea hit me that this was something that I could help people do, have a meaningful impact on their life as they're struggling with a loved one passing. It's horrible to then deal with the paperwork, the legal system. And frankly, the attorney can be frustrating. It's hard to get into their office. It's hard for them to turn things around at a time that is reasonable for many people. And it's just very expensive. So what I want our customers to feel is that somebody is in their corner, on their team, there to help them. Not only because we know what we're doing, but frankly, we've been in your shoes.
I was empowered by EZ-Probate's knowledge and organization of all the forms that I needed to get. And the explanation of what had to be done was so easily followed. I just could not believe that it was over within a matter of weeks. Everything was taken care of.
EZ-Probate was able to help Verda save her financial future by empowering her to probate an estate without an attorney. By following our simple to understand instructions, she navigated the process with ease and spent $0 in legal fees.
As Byron points out, probate is unfamiliar, complicated, and takes place when we're grieving. If ever there's a time to make it as easy as possible for a user to get through a task, probate is it. Fortunately, as UX designers, we have ways to do just that. As you see, there are 5 steps: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. While empathy for users is listed as the first step, really, it's the bedrock of all UX work. Empathy helps us understand our users, and while given there are real-world constraints, we can design to meet their needs as fully as possible. Defining the problem helps us choose an area to focus on. Ideation involves brainstorming solutions, while prototyping and testing are ways we make these choices real and then enlist users to check that we've actually made things better. How do we begin this process while working with EZ-Probate? We started with research. Competitor analysis showed us that EZ-Probate is breaking new ground. Companies like LegalZoom and Nolo offer some form of probate assistance, but we could not find another company in the United States dedicated solely to helping users successfully complete probate. EZ-Probate was generous in giving us access to the data and tools they use to run their business. We use Pipedrive to look at their customer relationship management, and AirCall to listen to recordings of phone calls with potential customers. Looking at Google Analytics showed us that most of EZ-Probate's traffic is organically driven. And additionally, we gained a lot of insight from the Capstone project. Hannah Warren, now EZ-Probate's internal innovation specialist, wrote as a student at Champlain College. As it so often does, research, along with conversations with Byron and Hannah, led to questions. One thing in particular stood out. Almost half of the people who took about half an hour to fill out EZ-Probate's questionnaire didn't take the last step and pay. They couldn't use EZ-Probate's services to complete probate. What were they doing? We created a survey that EZ-Probate sent to these users to find out why they weren't paying and how they were completing probate. And now, what did we do with the insight we'd gained into EZ-Probate's users? Well, earlier I talked about empathy and the importance of keeping the user front and center. One way UX designers do this is by creating personas, composite characters based on research and embodying key characteristics of the client's users. We found that, along with being older and primarily female, EZ-Probate users fall into 2 main camps: those comfortable completing tasks online and those who aren't. Our persona Doris is representative of the second camp. Along with aging eyes and occasionally shaky hands, she doesn't see the need to use a computer for much beyond the occasional email. Throughout the rest of our work, Doris's needs informed our design choices. To explain more, I'm now going to hand it off to Alex.
Thank you, Brooke. So how might we? Sounds a bit funny, right? Well, we use how might we statements to reframe our problems into opportunities for finding solutions. Listen carefully to the difference here. Oh no, my fridge isn't working, all my food's gonna spoil. Compared to, how might I determine why my fridge isn't working so that I can prevent my food from spoiling? In this case, we considered the user as well as EZ-Probate's point of view. For example, as EZ-Probate, how might we guide the user and reassure them throughout our service so that they become a happy customer? Now, as Doris, how might I complete an unfamiliar legal process as smoothly as possible so that I can focus on what matters, grieving the loss of a loved one? So now that we're asking the right questions, we did a heuristics analysis on EZ-Probate. Now, heuristics are just rules of thumb. For this project, we relied on Jacob Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics. We asked, how does every piece of this website help Doris accomplish her end goal? These findings are going to inform our design later on. So in our heuristics analysis, we found a few spots where customers could make errors. Try as we might, users will run roughshod over our carefully planned designs. Good UX expects users to make mistakes, and it allows them to recover as gracefully as possible. UX debt is the buildup of small mistakes over time. They can result from diagnosing the problem as being the user's fault, and therefore not something we have to address. Even if something is the user's fault, it's our job to design processes that are foolproof. UX debt can have real costs, which we'll show now. So what you see here is from AirCall, which is a communications tracking platform that EZ-Probate uses. This dashboard shows us phone calls for the month of June. 5 employees of EZ-Probate average 60 calls a person, with each call taking around 7.5 minutes. If we do some back of the napkin calculations here, with a fictional hourly wage of $30, we see that the time spent on the phone could cost around 13 grand. However, the real cost is not that initial sum. If you look in the top left, you'll see Byron Botras, his tile there. He spent 20 hours of phone time, took about 160 calls in June alone. So Byron's time is valuable, and there are real trade-offs here. Byron's great at building EZ-Probate. Imagine what would be possible if he were freed up from the phone. This realization inspired another how might we statement. How might we guide users to the correct service tier so that the lowest tier, do-it-yourself users, don't have to make as many phone calls to get through the process? From here, we started to outline a picture of where we could add value. We discussed our findings from survey responses with Byron. As Brooke said, over 40% of customers that didn't convert still needed probate help. We decided the best path forward was to update the customer touchpoint at the beginning of the process. What you see here is how we outline that process to better understand the workflow. With that new focus, we added a goal. Recommend a service tier and determine eligibility as early in the customer acquisition funnel as possible. Knowing that we had to distill a complex process into easy to follow steps, we conducted a comparative analysis, which looks at products or services our users may encounter, but they're not direct competitors. We asked ourselves, what did they do right? What attracts our users to these products? On the left of the screen, you see TurboTax. They're a prime example of translating complex legalese into natural language. On the right is a picture from the original questionnaire. You may not know it, but you're looking at something called Fitts Law. Fitts Law is about the ease of clicking a button being based on the distance to and the size of that button. So why are the clickable cards on the left better than radio buttons on the right? Well, Doris doesn't see as well as she used to, and radio buttons can be hard to click precisely with shaky hands. This is just one small tweak of many that inspired our final concept. So let's look deeper at where we started. This is a screenshot of the questionnaire that EZ-Probate is currently using. In terms of layout, the current state is one main questionnaire that takes about 20 to 30 minutes to complete. The original version also features a horizontal tab navigation along the top of the page. Looking at some of the aesthetic components, we observe the color theme is blue, white, and green. However, the button contrast between that background color and the text color, it could be improved a little bit. And we'll touch on this more later. Another thing we noticed was that it's not until the user completes a questionnaire that they're prompted for payment. So we started brainstorming. Thinking back to our persona, Doris, and our how might we statements, a solution began to emerge. We decided on splitting the questionnaire into two sections. Here to elaborate more on that is my colleague, Nate Ginsberry.
Thanks, Alex. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the redesigned questionnaire. So as Alex mentioned, we decided to split the original questionnaire into two parts. The first part is what we referred to as a screener or a pre-questionnaire. In every probate case, there's a set of key information that allows EZ-Probate to determine the extent to which they can assist. Gathering this information up front and early on in the process became our main goal for the screener. The second part is the main questionnaire. Once a user has paid for the service, they move on to the main questionnaire where they fill out the majority of the information needed for probate. Let's dive a bit deeper. So we began with putting together a low fidelity process flow of the screener's layout. Completing this exercise helped us establish the order of each step for efficiency to help someone like Doris, our persona, complete the screener with ease. Once we had the order complete, we began to put together high fidelity mock-ups of the individual design elements that would together ultimately create the templates that we used for the screener and the questionnaire. Because EZ-Probate had an existing site and product, we started with an audit of the existing components and then began to put together a style guide. Over time, this evolved into a high fidelity overview of the individual components that you see here. Where there were gaps, we filled in some things that didn't exist. And what we ended up with is a style guide, which includes different button states, typography, and iconography that we use throughout our redesign, and of course, our finalized template. It's important to note that these components were built with our persona in mind, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later on. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the finalized templates. The two templates featured here are featured in our redesign. The one on the left is used heavily in our screener, and the one on the right in the questionnaire. By looking at this slide, you should start to get a sense of how each individual element from the style guide has contributed to the overall look and feel of our redesign. So we'll go ahead and expand on this further with a walkthrough of the screener. As stated previously, the screener is designed for one thing: gathering key information about the probate case as early in the process as possible. To achieve this, we extracted a few questions from the existing questionnaire and added a few of our own, and we'll show you those now. We start by asking questions about the deceased. And the first question we ask is, what state was the deceased living in at the time of their death? This is a key starting point for the screener because different states have different laws regarding probate. The next screen features the video that we showed you all earlier. And the reason for this was because in our research, we found that there's an opportunity to reassert EZ-Probate as a legitimate business. And what better way to accomplish this than by showing users a video of a real testimonial. So at this point, we've accomplished two major tasks. First, we've established that EZ-Probate is able to assist with this particular probate case. And second, through the use of the video testimonial, we've legitimized EZ-Probate as a business. So next, we take a minute to ask the user to create an account so that any subsequent responses they enter can be saved in the system. After the user creates their account, we resume asking key questions about the deceased, including what is the deceased's full legal name. We also ask for high-level details like, did they own real estate? Was there a will? We also briefly ask about the family dynamics. And I want to talk for a minute about this card format here, because this was an intentional design choice. These cards are 200 by 200 pixels, which translates to a 2/3 of an inch square. This allows us enough space to add more context than we could have if these questions were presented differently. And when considering our user Doris, who may benefit from larger on-screen options, this format holds quite a bit of value. Next, we shift gears and begin asking questions about the user, essentially the person who's filling out this screener. And first we ask, what is your relationship to the deceased? To which they'd pick an answer from a drop-down menu like spouse, child, or parent. Next, we ask about the user's confidence regarding technology. Do you own a smartphone? Do you have access to a printer? Do you pay bills or file taxes online? Do you use social media? And just like previously, we utilize that same card format. And finally, we ask how the user is feeling about the probate process in general. Are they worried? Are they confident? Or do they fall somewhere in between? You might be wondering why we ask these questions of the user, and the reason is simple. EZ-Probate offers 3 different service levels for probate, and by asking these questions, we're able to make a recommendation as to the best service level for our user based on their psychographic profile. After we make the recommendation, the user selects the service they want, they pay, and they move on to the main questionnaire. As Alex mentioned earlier, we had some initial observations about the questionnaire in its existing state, both things we liked as well as some opportunities for change. Let's go ahead and start with what we changed. So the first thing we changed was the navigation.
No, I was just getting ready to...
As you can see, we go from a horizontal tab navigation in the existing state to a vertical navigation anchored to the left side of the screen in the redesign. This changes most of the aesthetic. However, we knew we wanted the account settings and sign out options to be located in the bottom left of the screen. We also wanted as much free space vertically on the page as possible, so moving the navigation to a sidebar format allowed for this. We also updated the button language. Previous became back. Continue was updated to next. Return to case overview was shortened to save and exit. Keeping in mind we were redesigning for someone like our persona Doris, an older user whose vision may not be what it used to be, the contrast between the button background and the text was another opportunity for us to improve the questionnaires usability. So in this instance, you can see we darkened the blue button color and opted for white text instead of black. And you can also see this update in the footer as well. General button sizing was also a big focus. Again, keeping our persona in mind, our user may struggle with click accuracy when using a mouse. So we removed all radio buttons from the entire redesign. Next, we replaced those radio buttons, which as you can see are located to the left of each answer and simply just made the yes or no answer themselves the click area. Additionally, we increased both the width and the height of the click area. To give you some additional context, the click area in the existing version is slightly larger than the size of a tip of a pen, requiring precision from the user. In our redesign, this area expands to more than 1/2 inch wide. So this was a massive opportunity, or massive improvement, excuse me, for our user, especially for those who may be filling this questionnaire out on a touchscreen. Now let's talk about what we kept the same. In large part, The question structure and language in the redesign was kept the same as the existing version, mainly because this was an area that was working for EZ-Probate. The areas that we did make structural tweaks were things like taking an existing slide with many questions and separating it into 2 slides to reduce cognitive load on our user. In some instances, we also added additional help text, and then of course, we also extracted a few questions and repurposed them in the screener. We also kept the 5 main sections intact, and those main sections consist of the petition, the deceased, the will, heirs and devisees, and assets. We also kept the check marks. When a user fully completes a section of the questionnaire, a check mark appears next to the navigation item for that section as outlined here. We love this because it's a subtle progress bar. The blue, green, and white color theme was also largely left as is to ensure alignment with the brand. However, we did make a few minor updates to enhance the visibility for our persona. So let's go ahead and talk about what is brand new. Since even the redesign is fairly lengthy, we wanted to break it up a bit and add a way for someone like Doris to see a consolidated view of all the answers she's input thus far at specific points of the process. And we solved this by incorporating section review slides. To reduce the number of slides we added to the questionnaire, we only added 3 of these, and they appear at the end of the petition, the will, and the asset sections. And now let me go ahead and turn it back over to Alex to wrap things up.
Thank you so much, Nate. So everything that Nate just listed off creates a more intuitive product for Doris to use. And we learned a lot from this project. In addition to the technical skills gained on Figma and other software, we got to know our users by empathizing with their needs and wants. The result is a new onboarding process that focuses on Doris and her end goal of completing probate. We went into this project with a few assumptions, but they were quickly dropped. Our research shows that our elderly users are not tech averse. Rather, they simply have to be shown the value of tech in order to adopt it. If they have their needs met, they will succeed. We learned that when going through a complex, unfamiliar process, it helps to break it down piece by piece and use natural language. We gave our users an off-ramp at any point while reassuring them that their progress would not be lost. We learned how to build confidence in a service through reassurance. To that end, we added review screens to allow users to identify and quickly correct errors. One of the main takeaways was changing the checkout point. We made purchasing the service, converting, into the natural next step in a series of tasks to be completed. We also learned a lot from Byron and Hannah. Their approach to problem solving informed our own. We're grateful to be a part of a fast-growing business that empowers everyday people. Of course, we couldn't have accomplished any of this without the wisdom of Rick Mechanic and Mateo Cohen, so a big thank you to those guys. Thank you also to Burlington Code Academy for putting this together, and thank you to you, the audience, for listening. So now's your chance to ask any questions.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. So as some questions start coming in, I'm going to start reading some of the ones that we've already received, and we've got about 15 minutes. So anyone on the team who feels like answering, y'all can jump in and we can get there. So one of the first questions that I have for you is, how did you determine what sort of questions to include on the user surveys?
I'll snag that one. They came out of both conversations with Byron and Hannah, and also from the Google Analytics. We found that their traffic was coming in, people were looking, people were filling out, but then they were bouncing away. So converting customers was important. So that drove a lot of the survey questions. We wanted to know why they were filling out the form in its entirety, but not paying.
Great. And then I'm curious how many iterations you went through before you reached a final product.
Many, many, many.
I think on the screener alone, we were on version 5, but each of those versions have little iterations built in. So many.
And then I'd love to hear if this project led to any more curiosity or questions for any of you in regards to probate in general.
Oh, yes. Probate, not so much, but the idea, again, of how do we take a system that's unfamiliar to the end user, the person going through probate or any legal, and make it easier for them to go through. You know, and how do you design a system that has to take into account so many variations, because probate is governed by states. So you have some states where a small estate is $1,000 and some states where a small estate is $100,000. How do you design a system that's flexible enough to accommodate that, those guardrails, and also accommodate the needs of a wide range of users? So it led to a lot of questions.
I would imagine. And then I'm curious about if you could go into some more detail about how you match the user to their appropriate service level based on their card selections. What underlying logic are you using there?
Yeah, I can hop on there. So we were really lucky that Byron was completely available to us. We had a weekly call, but we were also part of his Slack channel. So we had so many questions that we were able to get answered right away. So with that underlying logic, we have the framework set up. We want to work hand in hand with Byron to create a scoring system. So let's say that I use social media, but none of those other cards are clicked. I don't pay taxes online. I don't have a way to get to the courthouse, and I'm overall pretty worried about probate. That would trigger the response to categorize me into like a good candidate for the concierge service, which is where EZ-Probate spends more time helping me out. So it's a good way to categorize users.
Definitely. And then we have another question about, were there any concerns around privacy and or scaring users away in questions about social media use, smartphones, etc. in the get to know you section? I only ask because I think about my grandmother, and if she got those questions, she might opt not to continue just because she might feel this service isn't for her, as she would say no to pretty much every one of those cards. What would you do in that case?
Yeah, so I actually answered in the chat as well, but that's a good point, Josh. And I think that we need to have further conversations around that to make sure everybody feels welcome. Part of that is going to be that intro video with Byron that features a user named Verda and her telling her story, just how it was so hands-off, she didn't have to worry about it. So it's going to come down to messaging and just promotion of the different service tiers.
Right, and part of it too, in the screener, we not only embed the, as Nate said, the video about Byron, but once they've created an account, there is a video being worked on for introducing them to how the system works, you know, kind of what they're going to need and the fact that there will be hand holding along the way. So we understand, you know, if the technology, if you don't have those things, you don't have those things and they're important. And we can still help you. They're just going to be different workarounds. It's kind of like, so it's working on the language and making sure people know that.
Great. And then the next question I have, whoop, they're coming in, hang on. Sorry, give me 1 second. So how did you find empathy and understanding of persona influenced your design decisions?
Oh, it always. I think one of the things that, you know, the truism in UX design is that, you know, I am not the user. And so by doing the research, by going out there and seeing who the customers actually are and where their struggles were, was one part of building that empathy. The other part is, I mean, I think you have to have this to want to be a UX designer, is that willingness to say, okay, somebody has these issues. How can I make it easier for them to navigate this system? So it's always saying, well, you know, it's, as Nate said, radio buttons. It's a non-starter. By making it as accessible to all, you know, or to the, I guess I'll rephrase this, sorry. By making it accessible to someone with more limited physical abilities does not change the experience in this setting for somebody with full mobility. If anything, it just makes it smoother because you can tap through a bigger button faster.
Right.
So that's how it informs our design decisions. By making it good for that one category, it makes it better for all.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And then we have someone curious about if you considered a mobile layout for the site.
Nate.
We ran out of time. But yes, we did. And we had a few, I guess we have still present tense, a few mock-ups that we can share for a mobile design that were sort of quickly mocked up. But yeah, that's you know, one thing we would love to continue to work on, you know, if this course and this opportunity, you know, was twice as long.
And that's one thing that Byron mentioned in the chat. He's got customers who have done it with no computer, just on a phone. So making it responsive like that would be important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then sorry, go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, I did want to speak to that. I know in the chat somebody mentioned Doris as the persona. Doris was not our only persona. She was the main persona, but there are sometimes people doing probate. Another bucket is people who are doing probate for somebody who they are not as close to. So a child doing it for a great uncle, you know, and there was a relationship and they're still grieving, but they may be more familiar. That's where some of the mobile traffic would come from.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm curious if any of you or all of you found it difficult tackling such a sensitive project. Death is so taboo in our society, so I'm sure that influenced your insights and decisions. So sort of how did that affect this process for you?
It influences, I have a background in healthcare. So I have worked with people who are dealing with the death of a loved one who are dying themselves. It influences everything because you know they are sad. And I also know if I can help you get through this process as smoothly as possible, the relief that comes at the end of dealing with an unwanted and necessary but unwanted task is amazing. Knowing you don't have probate hanging over your head, that you're going to be able to sell a house that you need to sell or stay in a house that you want to stay in is unbelievable. Not having to worry about that on top of missing your wife is, I consider it a blessing, really, to be able to work on a process like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say too that I think it's a matter of education. So I didn't happen to see how many hands were raised for folks who had not heard about probate, but I had no idea what probate was. So Byron actually on his website does a lot of education. He's got learning resources there. So I think the more people are aware of it, the smoother that process will be. Yeah.
Definitely. And then I'm curious if the team conducted any user testing on the prototype. If so, what was that process like and what were the results?
Yeah, so that's yet to be done. We did run out of time. We spent a lot of time on different iterations, but we do have plans to circle back with Byron. One great thing about EZ-Probate is we said we wanted a survey and they made it happen. They sent it out to all their users. So finding people to test and usability tests will be no problem. I'm sure we can get right on that.
That's great. And then I'm curious about if there's anything that you wanted to dig into further, but you didn't have the time or the capacity to.
Well, the usability testing for sure. That's, you know, a key step, and more time would be great.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'll add too, you know, I'd love to, you know, track this thing and see, you know, if it's implemented just to see the success of it as well. So that's one thing I'd like to kind of follow up on.
Yeah, it would be great if we could do some A/B testing. So have the original questionnaire for say 75% or even 50% of customers, and then test ours out alongside to see if that conversion rate is any different. One thing we did as part of this process was dive into Google Analytics. So we should be able to see exactly when they bounce from the site.
And I'm curious, as we have a little bit more time, I'm curious about, you know, if any of you had design or psychology experience coming into this course, or if these were both totally new melting of those topics for you.
Well, I do have the background in healthcare. I was a homeschooling mother. I think that might be both. That falls more in the psychology than the design. I'm a graduate of BCA's coding boot camp, and I have been a maker. So I work on Adobe Illustrator, but other than that, formal design, no.
Yeah, so I'll give you my standard interview question because people ask, how many years of design experience do you have? And I mean, the real answer is somewhere around 6 months, but with UX, it feels like something you've been practicing your whole life. You just didn't have a name for it because it is just understanding other people, listening, empathizing, and problem solving. That's really all it is.
Alex, you spilled the secret.
I mean, no, it's magic. Yeah.
I love it. Did your team go through the process of making the site ADA compliant?
To the best of our ability, yes. We are still students. We are still learning. We definitely checked for contrast and visibility compliance. And then again, as Nate mentioned, redesigned buttons and tiles to make that easier.
Our designs in Figma should be at least AA. Now, granted, if you look on EZ-Probate site, you will not see any of our work as of yet, but they're at least AA, if not AAA, for some things on our end.
Great. And then the last question that I'm going to ask before we hop into our next group of presentations. If someone wanted to hire your UX team for a project, is that something that your team would be interested in? Working as a whole group, you know, seeing what you've brought to the table for EZ-Probate?
I'll speak for myself. I'm sick of these guys. No, it was a fantastic experience working with both Brooke and Alex, and yeah, I would love to, you know, continue to work with them again in the future.
I'm not sick of these guys at all. They're amazing, and I learned from them. Our strengths, I answered this in the chat, but I will also say our strengths complemented, and we had a great way of, you always come up to problems that need to be resolved, of working them out.
Yeah, as far as I know, none of us has a firm job offer yet, so get it while you can, folks.
Love it.
Yet is the operative word.
Yet. Great. All right, and if we have no last questions, feel free to keep submitting them as we go through, and we'll also have a section where questions are opened up for both groups at the end of the Love Burlington's presentation after their question Q&A section. So without further ado, you are amazing. That was a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your hard work. And I'm excited to see what's next.
And just quick thank you to Rick, Mateo, and BCA. Couldn't have done it without you.
And EZ-Probate. Thank you, Byron and Hannah as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you so much, you guys. Excellent job. Well done. Again, just for a little bit of perspective for everybody who's joining us, these three students, all of our students, went from really having minimal knowledge of formal UX, although I agree with Alex that it is something that we have all lived with, we all sort of understand, I think, innately, but we don't necessarily understand that it's a thing. And also, I think the experiences that we provided, the instruction that we provided, that was a big part of what these students did. They were taking, they were in class, they were in lessons throughout most of the day, doing other types of projects, including things for themselves, other types of activities and labs that we had them doing. And then in addition to that, they were also doing this capstone project. So to pull that all together, to put it into a really nice presentation, well done, you guys, well done. Okay, with that said, you ready to, the Love Burlington team, are you guys ready to go? If we turn it
ready,
over?
Rick.
Okay, Sadie, are we good to go for switching over here?
Oh, we are good to go. I'm
okay. All right, keep your popcorn warm. We're gonna jump in on this next one here.
All right, everybody hear me okay? Excellent. Welcome. My name is Eric Lamontagne. I am unbelievably excited to be here today. I'm joined by my colleagues Teal Wiegand and Marshall Estland, and together we are the Love Burlington team. So briefly, I'm going to walk you through an agenda here. We're going to talk to you about some context of the project, go over some of the problems we were presented with, the role we were asked to play. We'll hand it off to Teal at that point, who's going to go over our research and discovery process, and then on to Marshall to discuss our design functionality. And then we'll wrap up by going over some user testing that we did and the questions that we answered. Burlington, small yet nationally recognized for the wonderful shopping, dining, events, and experiences all created by our local businesses. The residents of Burlington are diverse and forward-thinking. The community is rich in arts and culture, and the small business community is the heart of the city. These local business owners create the spaces we gather in, the events we celebrate, and provide the gifts we give, while they foster community throughout. However, as everyone here is acutely aware, COVID-19 has caused significant disruption in our daily lives. Our small business community has not been immune to its effects. Through this unprecedented time, our locally owned small businesses need some extra love and attention. While Vermont continues to be one of the safest places in the country, business revenues are down, jobs have been lost, employees furloughed, inventory stagnant. This chart here does a great job of showing just how profound this impact has been. Where the green line on top is foot traffic in downtown Burlington in 2019, and the blue is 2020. Even after restrictions were lifted, downtown foot traffic has barely rebounded. These problems will only be amplified by the seasonal decline in visitors once this cold weather hits. When we first sat down with our partners at the City of Burlington, they initially identified several problems they would like us to solve. Among those, people didn't know which shops were open and what their hours were. People were unsure if shipping or curbside options were available. It was difficult for locals and tourists to discover Burlington stores and products. Merchants wanted to get more people to their existing e-commerce sites, and stores needed more advertising and promotion of their products. Our role in this was to work collaboratively with the City of Burlington to research and design an effective solution that would help solve these problems, while also serving as both an immediate response to help these desperate merchants, but also as a long-term resource to connect shoppers with the stores and products that make Burlington unique. The initial direction for this project, as proposed by the city, was an Amazon of Burlington concept. We ultimately did not end up going in this direction, more on that later, but this is what shaped our approach during the first part of the project. They proposed a one-stop shop where people from all over the country could connect with the stores and products they love, purchase them, and have them shipped directly to their door. The platform was envisioned as being highly community-focused, feature-rich with a large inventory, and presenting eye-catching, engaging visuals. Additionally, we were asked that our solution be integrated with the then soon-to-be launched, but now launched, Love Burlington site. Love Burlington was created, much thanks to the generosity of Mike Lannon and the Eternity team. I think a few of them are here today. Created to amplify the voices of local small businesses and help connect consumers to their stores, restaurants, and services. It's a directory-style site that highlights Burlington's unique neighborhoods and connects consumers with information on shopping, dining, and activities within the city. It's from this site that we drew most of our design styles. Also notable with this project was the number of stakeholders that we had to balance. On the merchant side, we had small store owners, many of whom did not have time to utilize additional platforms. We had store owners who were new Americans and may have a language barrier. And we also had larger businesses and those with the capacity and desire to manage a more robust and detailed inventory. We also had different types of shoppers whose needs we needed to consider as well, such as local shoppers, tourists, and other visitors. And lastly, but certainly not least, we had to consider the people behind the scenes at the City of Burlington who would have to manage the site and the people using it. Our platform had to offer accessibility, value, ease of use, and functionality for all of these user types. We knew it was time to get to work, creating a site through which merchants and consumers could come together, find one another, and support local businesses. And with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Teal to talk about our research and discovery process.
Thanks, Eric. I'm just grabbing control of the screen. There we go, got it in order. So as we started our research into this initiative, we had to really empathize and learn about our users. Who are our users and what are their needs? We also had to understand that we have users from 3 different audiences, like Eric mentioned. First, we have shop merchants and local shop owners. For merchants, we had to ask the initial questions, will this initiative actually help merchants, or will it be too much to manage on top of an already busy life of running a business? Second, we had consumers, your next door neighbor or mom who would be using this site. Here we were asking, do consumers want this site? Is it relevant to people? And what sets this site apart from others like it? And our third audience was the City of Burlington, whom we were working with to build out this platform. For the city, we needed to ask, how affordable is this going to be? And is it even possible within the constraints of the current directory style site that was recently launched? Here we go. To learn more about our merchants and to begin to investigate these questions, we surveyed local merchants and performed interviews. Our multi-question survey, we discovered that the vast majority, 81% of merchants that we asked, preferred to only post a curated selection of their items versus a large selection or full inventory of their products to a local goods e-commerce site like this. When we asked for other feedback, this is a small sample of what we heard from over 20 responses that we gathered. I love that the city is thinking along these lines. For us, I think that the marketing aspect is more important than the selling platform. Additionally, I'm really looking forward to generating more visibility in online forums within the local community. During our merchant interviews, we heard input like, the marketing aspect could drive more people back to brick and mortar. We don't want to lose these people. We want to see locals shop us online and come pick up at our back door. From this, we made some prominent merchant discoveries. 87% of merchants already had an existing e-commerce site. They did not have the time to manage another e-commerce site on top of that. A site run by the city may not be the most helpful. And the most important discovery is that merchants are interested in posting featured items and increasing the exposure for their businesses. This set the stage for our capstone to follow the research and see if merchants and consumers felt the same. To learn more about consumers, we created another survey. We wanted to highlight two key findings from this multi-question survey. In the survey, we asked, on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being not important to 5 being extremely important, how important is it to you to be able to quickly find what you're looking for when using an e-commerce site? With over 80 responses, 48% of consumers said this feature is extremely important to them. Similarly, when we asked how important knowing the availability of local products through curbside pickup or delivery options, 49% of consumers also rated this as a 5, extremely important. During our consumer interviews, we heard input like, honestly, there are so many great local businesses around Burlington, even more here than many other places. Vermont is very much more about local goods. The discovery part is what's hard. From this, we made some vital consumer discoveries. Most people would be interested in using this less as a shopping site, but rather as a discovery site. Consumers want to find what Burlington has to offer and where they can find it. And consumers were interested in whether or not a store offered curbside or shipping and delivery options. From our research and findings, we started to define our users and construct a point of view based on our users' needs and insights. We utilized the survey results and referred to demographic data set provided by the city. We created user personas, as you see here, which are a fictitious yet realistic representation of our target users, who exhibit similar attitudes, goals, and behaviors in relation to our product. These human-like snapshots showcase relevant and meaningful commonalities. Understanding your user is the core principle in user-centered design. Utilizing user personas as a design tool can help to bridge knowing about our users and actively creating an excellent user experience. These first two user personas are of consumers who will use the Love Burlington site. A local like Kim, who's eco-minded, focused on keeping Vermont strong and supporting the shop local movement. Kim just needs help discovering all the great shops that Burlington has to offer. Or like Hunter, who we saw in the earlier slide, a tourist living in New York who misses the luxury of coming to Burlington for a weekend getaway, but wants to stay informed with the new stores and attractions in town. Next, we generated merchant personas, like Melody, who does not have a lot of experience with websites and has never done an e-commerce before. On the opposite end of the spectrum is a merchant like Brian, who already has a website for his store and is looking to build his social media presence and grow exposure for his business. From there, we started to synthesize the information and data that we collected and created an insight map, showing just a small section of it here, An insight map helps to give an overview of the extracted findings. For this initiative, that meant finding the intersection of shopper goals and business goals and discovering how might we fit the needs of all of our users. We generated how might we questions, like how might we help Burlington business owners weather the COVID economic storm? And how might we connect people who love to shop local with unique and creative Burlington merchants? This guided our minimum requirements list and gave insight into valuable aspects to look at within competitor sites. We looked at competitor sites like Amazon, Etsy, 7 Days, and Love Vermont. We did a SWOT analysis on each site, digging into the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that each site offers. To the right, you can see a SWOT on Etsy that we created. From this, we pulled key strengths and weaknesses from each site to utilize when ideating our own possible solution. We took our competitor analysis further and looked at key metrics based on what our initial data had indicated were the priority areas for consumers. The key principles were a local focus, trustworthiness of the site, ease of navigation, strength of branding behind the site, clear shop descriptions, ease of finding products related to a search, and the presence of consumer reviews. These were key for consumers when using an e-commerce site. From that data, this made for a shift in our project. We were originally presented this shoppable build out on the Love Burlington site as a wish list idea from the city to create the Amazon of Burlington. Certainly a big task to take on. What we discovered was that based on our user research, consumers and merchants did not want the Amazon of Burlington, but rather the Etsy of Burlington. Amazon is a large-scale, product-based, mass delivery e-commerce platform, while Etsy is a more curated, bespoke platform with a flair for crafty, unique gifts, an inherently more Burlington feel. With our new slogan of the Etsy of Burlington, we had to dive into a related question. How do we address the use of a shopping cart on an e-commerce platform? Would consumers still find value in a site that did not allow them to shop multiple merchants using a unified shopping cart? Building a fully shoppable e-commerce site with a unified shopping cart to shop from different stores all together came with great complications. Who's responsible for shipping products? Who regulates the division of taxes between stores? And could the city host, manage, and keep an e-commerce site and all of the payment information secure online? We were concerned how vital this aggregated shopping cart was to consumers, so we asked them. Most people, 81%, said that they would prefer a consolidated shopping cart, but 95% said that they would still use this site and be okay shopping merchants one by one. Knowing this, combined with our research, we knew that we would still be offering a useful service even without a singular aggregated shopping cart. Another challenge we had to take into account was the accessibility of our site for merchants. Because Burlington is so diverse, there's a disparity in tech ability and time availability from merchants. We needed to have a low barrier to entry for small business owners and new American businesses alike. We needed a solution that could offer both a high involvement option and a mostly autonomous option. Also a solution that the city themselves would not have to manage. That solution was Instagram. Instagram is the most used social media platform by both merchants and consumers. Instagram is free, easy to access, and easy to use. It's also available in many languages. During our merchant interviews, we asked what % of sales are online versus in-store. One merchant went on to say, 60% of my sales come from traffic I generate online, all from my Instagram. With the diversity and adaptability of Instagram, this would be a great way to help us meet our project goals. Instagram would allow for a widespread business advertisement and ultimately promote sales and revenue back to the businesses in need. We could utilize an Instagram API, an application programming interface, for merchants who didn't want to or couldn't spend the time uploading highlight items on an additional e-commerce platform. This would allow us to create a custom backend for merchants that wanted to more actively manage their presence on the Love Burlington site and post product cards with individual highlight items with product details. Brainstorming how we could tell the story and amplify the unique qualities of Burlington shops, regardless of how they input highlight products, we continue to build off the use of images. Thinking back to pre-COVID era, which kind of seems like forever ago now, we were used to seeing bustling streets and busy stores. Now our streets are a little more quiet. Our interactions with other people are far less, and we've grown to appreciate the comforts and small joys like window shopping. The struggle for consumers is knowing which businesses are open, and the struggle for merchants is that they need support to drive consumer traffic back to Burlington as we continue to reopen. Adopting this window shopping approach, we tried to find a way to bring that experience of walking down Church Street and enjoying the store displays right to the consumer's home. We discovered this image, a collage display of goods, reminiscent of Instagram and influenced from our research. Implementing this into our site, each shop could curate a display based around their highlighted products, an aesthetically pleasing arrangement that tells each shop's story from a browsable perspective. This collage display would promote merchant products and boost business advertisements right from the Love Burlington landing page. That idea found its way into our designs. So this is an accumulated view of our window shopping experience using this collage, framed by individual product and Instagram cards showing highlights from local stores. Marshall will tell you more about these cards and their use on our site.
Thank you, Teal. Here you can see our two types of product cards, our curated cards and our Instagram cards. These cards tie back to our two merchants, Melody and Brian, and allow for different levels of involvement from the merchants. Our curated card would require the merchant to create an account, log in, upload photos, add product details, as well as a URL to their existing e-commerce website. When these cards would be clicked on, they would send the user out to that product's detail page on that external e-commerce site, where they could then purchase the item. On the other hand, we have our Instagram cards, which would only require the permission to use their Instagram account, in which clicking on one of these cards would open up an Instagram post in a modal and allow the user to, follow, like, and share just like you would on Instagram. So this way we have the opportunity to both increase revenue to the businesses as well as increase their advertisement. And now I'm going to take you to our mobile prototype. Here we go, and walk you through this. So we didn't do a complete revision of the site. We focused on adding additional functionality. So you can currently see a lot of this on the current site right now if you go to loveburlington.org. Here you see the homepage, in which we kind of highlight local businesses, and particularly minority-owned ones. Down below here, again, you can see this window shopping experience that we've implemented. Again, with the Instagram cards linking out to Instagram and the product cards linking out to that external e-commerce platform. This collage in the middle also functions similarly to those product cards, in which you can click on the various items in the collage and then be linked out to that e-commerce site similarly. This allows us to implement this website in various phases, in particularly quickly getting out the Instagram as phase 1, which should be able to get out within the next couple months, providing quick relief to the economic crisis that COVID is currently providing. Then second phase would be adding in a login system that would allow the merchants to upload their product cards. And then the most involved one would be having the merchants create these collages and send them to us, as well as the URLs to link out to them. In particular, this middle collage would be very valuable to the merchants as it provides a bit more of creative advertisement for them. And the merchants are encouraged to do it as it provides a little bit more benefit to them than just doing the Instagram or the product cards. Now I'm going to take you to our shop directory page. Here on this page, the site lists out pretty much all of the businesses in the Burlington area and allows you to search and sort for various stores. Here in the middle, again, you see this window shopping experience. But in here, we also simulate the ability to kind of walk through Burlington as if you're walking down the street, looking at various storefronts. Again, continuing with our theme of exploration, we want to highlight the various neighborhoods of Burlington, as Burlington has a lot more to offer than just Church Street. Clicking on any of these will send you off to an individual page that has a lot more information about that neighborhood, as well as a complete listing of all of the stores, all of the restaurants, and all of the service industries in that neighborhood. Then below here, you can see the current functionality of the site, in which you can sort by various options to find various stores. So if you're worried about COVID and you're looking for a store that only does shipping or has curbside pickup, this is where you'd search for it. Again, you can also narrow it down by neighborhood or even minority-owned businesses. Clicking any of these stores will take you directly out to that store's individual shop page. Here you'll have a description of the store in greater detail. And then following our theme that we want to provide more traffic to those to the merchant's website, we have our call to action that links directly out to it. Then below, again, we kind of continue with the theme of having this pseudo e-commerce platform where the merchants are uploading all of their own images and different products. And again, you can link out, shop at their individual e-commerce store, and increasing their revenue, supporting locally owned businesses. With this, based off of our research, we found that the merchants are very busy and they don't want to invest, have a whole nother platform to heavily invest in. So what we've decided to do is limit the number of products that they can upload to 12. And we are hoping that this will increase participation as well as keep the site more up to date. Here below, you can see more of the functionality currently found on the site, where you can, find the store, contact information, as well as the various store hours. And now I'm going to pass it back off to Eric, and he's going to bring us home.
Unmute. Excellent. Thank you, Marshall. So with this kind of work, it's often easy to overlook some of the details when you've been working with the same design day after day. And outside eyes are really great for offering a new perspective. So to ensure that we were creating the best product possible, we performed a heuristic evaluation as well as some user testing. Heuristics refers to a specific set of 10 guidelines by which we evaluate the usability of our site, including consistency of language, visibility of system status, preventing user errors, ease of use, among others. User testing puts our product in front of real stakeholders who are then asked to perform actions or answer questions. In our case, we performed 5-second tests where users are given 5 seconds to look at a page of a site. It's then taken down and they are then asked questions about what they remember. This is an excellent method to assess what first impressions users get when landing on a page. We also performed first click tests where users are given a scenario and asked where they would click first to complete the action. This process demonstrates how well the site communicates to the user, either through language or through immediately recognizable functionality and visual cues. The process did reveal some minor tweaks and a few unexpected user behaviors, which we took into account. Among the changes we made, we swapped out some confusing imagery, added clarification and consistency to some language, and adjusted white space to better delineate sections and to facilitate readability. Interestingly enough, one of the most significant changes that we incorporated into our design as a result of this process will actually be one of the simplest to implement. So when you go to the homepage of the current Love Burlington site, it features a carousel of hero images. We discovered through our research that the first image you see when coming to the page, the one that's on the top left here, was making such a significant first impression that it was actually overpowering the rest of the site. 85% of the people in this 5-second test thought that this page featuring the words "Dine Local" was made this site primarily or exclusively about dining in Burlington. Most did not consider it a resource beyond this. When asked how they would find a product on the page, one person that we tested said that they probably would have just taken one quick look, seen that it was for finding restaurants, and then just headed over to Google. The solution, simple. We swapped out the first dining image with the second image in the carousel. This support local image that you see on the screen here. We found this immediately set a new tone to the page, communicating that it was about discovering local resources and not just about dining. Earlier on, Teal mentioned these how might we questions that we generated through our insights map. These included such questions as, how might we connect people who love to shop local with unique and creative Burlington merchants? How might we keep Burlington businesses front of mind? How might we let people know which stores offer curbside pickup and shipping? And of course, the ultimate question, how might we help Burlington business owners weather the COVID economic storm? Our answer? Love Burlington. Together with our partners at the City of Burlington, and with input from a diverse local merchants and consumers from around Vermont, New England, and the country, we took the strong foundation of the original Love Burlington site and expanded on it to create an accessible, research-driven solution for connecting merchants and shoppers. We used data and research to transform the initially pitched Amazon of Burlington concept, which we learned through our process would not best suit the needs of our stakeholders, into a window shopping Etsy of Burlington model, one through which merchants can highlight unique items, promote their stores, and tell their stories. Shoppers can discover local merchants, browse highlighted products, and get the store details they need to plan their shopping experience. Our design delivers on merchants' requests by giving them an engaging, interactive visual presence, while making it easy for shoppers to discover the types of items offered by that store and jump directly to their existing e-commerce and websites. It accounts for our diverse merchant stakeholder groups by being respectful of the varying levels of time and tech know-how of our business community. It allows for high investment, curated experience, or a nearly autonomous presence through connecting with Instagram. It's also designed for longevity. This is not just an immediate one-off response to our current situation, but one that cleanly integrates with the existing Love Burlington site and will serve the City of Burlington long after we have returned to normalcy. And above all else, it connects people who love to shop local with the wide varieties of opportunity available in our city, therefore helping drive revenue to our local stores. Before we wrap up, there's a few folks we'd like to recognize. For their support, input, and guidance, the team would like to thank our teachers and mentors at Burlington Code Academy, Rick Mechanic and Mateo Cohen, our partners at the City of Burlington, Cara Alancioi, Will Quibell, Adam Roof, and Julia Chalmers. Mike Lannon and the Eternity team was always there willing to share their input and offer feedback. And of course, all of those who participated in our surveys, interviews, and other research. As a team of 3 individuals, 2 of whom are lifetime Vermonters and who together can claim nearly 3 decades as Burlington community members, it has been so fun and fulfilling to work for a place that we call home, and an honor to play a part in helping our amazing Burlington businesses. And now we'll take your questions.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. What a cool project. And I'm excited to use this.
Thank you so much, guys. That was amazing.
Mhm.
And even though you sent me the phonetic spelling of your name, I apologize that I got it wrong.
No, don't worry about it. That's not important. The work is amazing, really. And it's like you guys saved the best for, I didn't know all the information that was in here. This was even like, this, you guys blew me away. This is amazing.
Thank you, Cara.
Love to hear that.
Thank you.
Awesome. So with that, I'm going to jump into some of the questions. So first question that we have here is, do you have a plan to get Love Burlington into the hands of new Vermont college students?
Yeah, so I answered that in the chat. I think that's a really great question and so relevant as well.
Mhm.
A lot of this that Marshall kind of touched on is thinking about building out this site in phases, understanding the city of Burlington themselves is a really small, close-knit team. And considering the environment we're in, they have so much on their plate. And truly their main focus is putting Burlington businesses first.
Mhm.
So that's where we jumped in, putting Burlington first. Certainly our vision is building it out, and kind of working in that phase model would be to extend to the greater area, city by city, neighborhood by neighborhood. You know, we're starting to branch into the old North End, the new North End, and maybe going into Winooski and greater areas from there.
Mhm. That's great. So that actually leads well into this question. So was there any question or debate as to where to draw the limits on what stores and establishments you would include? I imagine Winooski, South Burlington, and Richmond, to name a few, would benefit from a service like this. So I think the question sort of trying to get at, you know, where was that line drawn? Was that on your end? Was that on the city of Burlington's end?
Yeah, so the list of the stores was provided by the city of Burlington.
Mhm.
It was a Burlington sponsored project, and we did want to make sure that the focus was on the smaller businesses, so the locally owned businesses. So there was a line drawn in terms of no big national chains, for example.
Mhm. Great. And then we were curious as to how you incentivize shop owners to participate in the research, because sometimes even when people are going to be benefited by something, it's hard to get them to participate. So how did you manage that?
Teal, you're the one that tracked them down.
I'd say we just kind of grin and bared it, understanding that they are struggling with keeping their business afloat just as much as we felt like we were struggling sometimes to keep the lines of communication open with merchants. Eventually it did kind of come down to it, to kind of this guerrilla testing where we just went to merchants face to face. That's how I performed all of our interviews, was going down to shops, reaching out to shops that I was seeing on the Love Burlington site already, even maybe shops that we weren't seeing, and just talking to the merchants face to face and putting ourselves out there in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then we have someone curious as to if you surveyed different people for each survey, or if you had a lot of repeats to sort of cover different bases.
They were very targeted. So we did one that was specifically targeted to merchants. The city helped provide the contacts for that. They sent it directly to folks. We also reached out to the South End business folks to try to connect with that, because it was important that we didn't want to hear just from the core. We wanted to make sure we were hearing from North End business owners, South End business owners, et cetera. And then the consumers, we gathered research on where people were coming from. We asked for some demographic information on that. And it was interesting to see that most people were local Burlington folks, but a good number were actually from outside of Vermont and other places in the country as well.
And then we have another question that says, did any part of your process include fostering relationships with minority-owned businesses in the area? If so, how did you go about amplifying the voices of the local BIPOC community?
So we did not reach out specifically to that community. However, we were being mindful of the various needs of the business community. So I used to live on North Street in Burlington, which is one of the most diverse neighborhoods. And we had, man, 5, 6, these little tiny ethnic markets that were up and down North Street that were fascinating to go into with a really unique offering of products. And so just bearing in mind those folks as we went through this and including them in our personas and in our thought process, we hope to create really an inclusive platform that folks really could take advantage of.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then another question that we have is, what was the most shocking discovery, or what were the most shocking discoveries from all of this research?
I think it was a little bit different for each one of us on the team, and we kind of had major takeaways depending on our personal kind of insight into it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the biggest surprise was just the overall influence that Instagram has, both for consumers and merchants, especially on the merchant side, was a really big takeaway for me. When I had that interview with a merchant who mentioned over 60% of his sales are coming from online, and all of that traffic is strictly generated through his Instagram, that was a game changer for us. And truly even thinking about Instagram as an e-commerce platform as a whole was something new to me, certainly, to take as well.
Yeah, for me, it was when we got to that cart question, which was really a pivotal point in the project, where we were asking people, okay, if they came to this site and found that in order to buy that product that they saw, the highlighted item, they had to go to another website, would that be a problem to not have that aggregated shopping experience? And it was no surprise that most people said that that's what they would prefer, but the fact that 95% of people said that that would not be a deal breaker for them really reinforced the fact that people love shopping local, and it's not about just going and having that immediately convenient standard shopping experience. It's about being able to really support those unique businesses that people love.
Yeah, for me, I find it very interesting and kind of revealed a lot of what UX is all about to me, is that like we're providing this service for free to the merchants. But even then, they're still a little bit hesitant about it and unsure. And that's kind of what UX ends up being about. You can't, even if you're just giving something away, people aren't going to use it if it's not easy to use or if it doesn't provide some kind of benefit to them. And that's a large part of what we focused on, is creating that ease of use and focusing on actually giving them some kind of benefit so that they would participate.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those. It's interesting to hear all of your different takeaways. I'm curious what you saw the opportunities to be in your competitive analysis.
We saw that it was really important for people to be able to get a very close-up look of what the product was. They also wanted to feel like they were in an environment that wasn't overly commercial. They wanted to be in that, have that really good local feel to them. We found that there's the opportunity to, people appreciated reviews was a big thing, and that's something that could be incorporated down the road in this project. And also just being able to, a lot of it was the tone, just making sure that our design reflected that local positive window shopping tone rather than that real, you're here to buy stuff tone.
To be a little bit more specific about our radar chart findings, in particular, both the 7 Days directory and the Love Vermont directory, while they do provide like a good local feel, which Amazon and Etsy don't provide as strong of. They did not have nearly as much of a description as what their current site unfolds. And I think that's a large part of the advantage of Love Burlington over those sites, is we provide a lot more information.
And then, would the collage display be built by a tool on the site, or would users need to upload pre-built collages? If it is on the site, what would that workflow look like?
So one of the ideas behind it was that they could potentially just take a picture of their existing storefront, and then it can be tagged in. Yeah, we could absolutely build a back end for that, but we have not implemented something like that.
And then, do you think that this website could bring greater visibility to Burlington generally? My brother lives in Israel and always complains about how much he misses local Burlington products.
I think that's a great question. I think it translates directly back to looking at Hunter, one of the consumer personas that we made, who is also a tourist, kind of feeling like he's missing out on the BTV excitement that he was getting before, being able to pop in for a weekend getaway or this kind of thing. So what Love Burlington does is really gives you that ability to still feel connected to this city, the shops and the goods that it has. And it gives you also a new tool to discover what's new while you're away.
It also kind of brings up the point of one of our earlier findings, is that when we brought up the idea of an actual e-commerce site with whether or not international shipping could be done, and that was a hard no. And that was one of the reasons why we took this path.
Yeah, that was actually one of the specific consumer goals that we identified in that insights map. And we saw that there were quite a few overlaps with business goals on that as well. So that actually went directly into informing those how might we questions that we put together.
Very cool. And then, have you considered how you would drive users to both the local BTV platform or maybe an individual's shop if they were actually there in person and the shop was closed, or they were nervous about shopping in person during COVID? It would be nifty to see some local BTV branded QR codes that directed people to each shop's page or individual products. Is that something you considered?
If you go onto the Love Burlington Instagram account, you can actually see that they have a little card that they've passed around to various merchants when they've taken photos with them and shared that online. I think having a QR code that links directly back to like that merchant store would ultimately have to be kind of done by that individual merchant. But yeah, we have kind of have that.
Great. And then, for stores that were open, did you consider the buy online, pick up in store model to encourage customers who are open to it to interact with the store owners and possibly pick up additional items?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it currently works. I mean, you can currently search for stores that have shipping and delivery. So if they have both the shipping and curbside pickup tag, that would mean that you'd be able to go on their website and order something for curbside pickup.
And that's somewhat the function of those learn more buttons that appear on those cards as well, so that when somebody sees an item that they like and are interested in, they can use that learn more button to go directly to that merchant's e-commerce site, which allows them to see other items from that merchant and other similar items offered by that merchant.